Hi, and welcome back to Walking Through the Word. Today we're going to be looking at Genesis 10, which is our first genealogy. Hi, and welcome back to Walking Through the Word. Today we're going to be looking at Genesis 10, which is our first genealogy. As we go through that, what I'll do is I'm going to compress the footage so that it'll play really fast for you. And if you want to see the whole thing, go down to the bottom corner over here, and you'll see the little settings icon, and you click on that, it'll pop it up, and you can see where it says speed over here, and just pick 25% speed, and you'll be able to see hear this at normal speed. But there are a couple points I want to make about it, so I'll go ahead and I'll read through it anyhow, and then when I stop, I'll slow down the video and go on it. And so on this video, we'll probably have a couple chapters of Genesis just for today's lesson. Okay. Now Cush became the father of Nimrod. He became a mighty one on earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. Now I'm going to mention something. This guy right here in verse 28, this Jobab, who is a descendant of Shem, I've heard it said that this is Job. So when we look at the story of Job, we'll understand that this is probably him, and that's my belief that this is Job. So when we look at Job, we'll understand that it was actually the oldest book in the Bible. It predates most of what happens in Genesis, because here he is. This is Jobab. We also look at the book, and we'll get into Job when we get into Job. Anyhow, so here he is. See, this is where he's appearing first in Genesis. All these were the sons of Joktan. Now their settlement extended from Mesha as you go towards Sephar, the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem, according to their families, according to their languages, by their lands, according to their nations. These are the families of the sons of Noah, according to their genealogies, by their nations. And out of these the nations were separated on the earth after the flood. And so that's it. That's the end of chapter 10. It's the quick genealogy. Like I said, we see Job in there, and we see Nimrod first mentioned, and it gives us a little bit of background on him, but very little bit. He comes into play a little bit later, I think, but that's all it says about him. So this is chapter 10. We're going to move on to chapter 11 and take it from there. So, all right, so we're going to start with chapter 11, and this is where we start looking at the Tower of Babel and what's going on with that, and we'll take it from there. Chapter 11, verse 1. Now the whole earth used the same language and the same words. It came about as they journeyed east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they used brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. They said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city, and a tower whose top will reach into heaven. And let us make for ourselves a name, otherwise we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. The Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they all have the same language. And this is what they began to do. And now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them." Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, so that they will not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the whole earth. So one of the important things we want to start looking at now is in verse 3. It says, they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they used bricks for stone. Now, when they took the bricks and they burnt them, it fired the pottery. And when you fire pottery, it's no longer going to get damaged by water. And then they went ahead and they used tar as the mortar. And the idea was that it was waterproof, that they were going to somehow now outsmart God, and and they were using this tar, they were using these special bricks that they had burnt, that had been fired pottery to build this tower, and they were going to build it up. And it says that they were going to build a city for themselves, and a tower whose top will reach heaven, and then they will make for themselves a name. And this is one of those things where it refers back to Genesis 3, I guess it says, and then men start to call upon the name of the Lord, and now they want to make a name for themselves. They want to make their own gods. So this tower is going to reach to heaven. So this became more than just a tower. This kind of became like a temple of sorts, all right? And there's other legends about Nimrod and stuff like that that you can go ahead and you can look up in the secular histories or the legends of the different Mesopotamian areas around there. And I forget which one off the top of my head, but that's there, and you can go ahead and you can look at that and see who, what happened with this and who he was. All right. So then it says here in verse 6, behold, they are one people, and they all have the same language. And this is what they began to do. And now nothing which they propose to do will be impossible for them. So here something's happening with their language, that they're able to communicate with each other, and it's making anything possible for them. The more they learn, the more they're able to share this information and work together and build these things. So God wanted to put something on them that would limit that. And so he says that he would come down and he would confuse their language, and so that they would not understand one another's speech. Now, a lot of people think and say and teach that this is when the languages were scattered, would change. So like some people started speaking Chinese, some people started speaking Hebrew, some started speaking English or whatever. And so the different languages started coming out of this, and this is what happened here. And I don't think so, because we don't have that as a problem. We can have astrophysicists that speak English work on projects with astrophysicists that speak Chinese and just use a translator. And they're able to communicate like that way. But what we don't have is we don't have astrophysicists that are able to speak the exact same language to the engineer or to the artist. And the more you get into a higher level of specialization in any field, you wind up getting into industry terms, and you wind up getting its own lexicon of words and meanings to different meanings to words for where it applies to that particular field. And there's ways of talking. When two physicists sit down, they're going to just start, putting mathematical equations on a piece of paper and talk to each other in the language of physics. But when they speak to someone like us who hasn't studied physics, they're not going to use the language of physics. And this is a limiting factor in our ability to do things, and for our ability to accomplish scientific and sociological advancements and stuff, is this this lack of communication, this expertise syndrome, I think is what it's called or related to. So, and I really think that that's what happened here at Babel, that the work that they were doing made them that highly specialized, that these languages started developing, that these terms started developing, and so they had a hard time coordinating the things that they were doing because they didn't understand each other, and it confounded their speech, and then they separated in. And that is my take on that.